So, today I want to talk about a story that I heard last night. It just briefly came on Pandora. It was a musician, and he was introducing the next song he was going to sing by telling this story. And the story was very brief. He just said his child had died, and he felt that even though the God that he believed in was always supposed to heal, he believed it was really important to just continue to come out and say, nothing's changed, God is good. Despite what he went through, it was just really important to him to continue saying, God is good. And as I was listening to him, the first question that popped up, of course, is why? How did you get from point A, God always heals, and my child died, to point B, God is good, God is always good, and there was nothing in between? And as I was listening to this story, it was like I got this very powerful picture in my head of someone who is standing at a very great distance from his own story out of a fear of judgment from his community. Here's how judgment works. When you're telling a story, there are certain things that you feel make you vulnerable and weak. And so if you're afraid of being judged, you're going to have to hide the things that make you vulnerable and weak, because vulnerability can expose you to contempt. Contempt, what psychological researchers love to call the relationship killer. It destroys hearts because it looks for weakness and it shreds, ridicules, judges vulnerability and weakness. So if you're trying to tell a story, and it's a painful story, or just any kind of story, and you feel that this story makes you vulnerable or weak in any way, you're going to be tempted to stand at a great distance from the very details that your audience most needs to hear to go along with you on this story. And you're doing it because you want to carefully protect that very precious heart of yours from contempt, which every human being on earth has experienced, receiving that kind of judgment, and it's incredibly painful. The problem is it completely disconnects you from your audience. The very details that would connect you with them and with their own pain and with their own struggle, you're withholding out of a fear of judgment and contempt. So what do? The answer is you have to cultivate an endless well of empathy for the very things that make you the most weak and the most vulnerable. Professionally, personally, we're always telling stories. No matter what we do or where we go, it's just part of the human condition. We tell stories to understand. We tell stories to connect. What I do in my profession is I help people tell stories. And if there is one thing that I could tell everyone about what you need to do to be the most effective storyteller, is to connect with all of the things that you're most afraid of being exposed and cover them in empathy. You don't have to share that with anybody. You don't have to talk about that part. But once you know that all those places are bathed in empathy, you're going to find that you can go out there and you can share in a way where you feel safe and secure, where you know what details to release and you know what details to pull back, and you know exactly how to connect with an audience in a really deep way where both parties' privacy is somehow still respected. Empathy is like this miracle drug. It protects while allowing you to connect at the same time. So I just wanted to share that story. If you're struggling with getting your stories out there, if you feel like people aren't connecting with what you have to say, I would suggest the Empathy Cure. I found it to be an amazingly powerful antidote to fears of judgment and fears of contempt. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this has been helpful.